Oof. I mean, what is there to say after that? This is Raptors postgame. I'm JD Bunkis. He's Donnovan Bennett. It's presented by MasterCard. Proud of basketball in the North. Let's start something priceless. I'm having difficulty even knowing where to begin with this because this was painful. I think that this was, I think out of all the Raptors losses I've ever watched, this one probably hurts the fan base the most. Would you not agree with that?
Do you remember what it was like to get swept by Washington, to get punked?
Yeah, but
to have your team quit?
Yeah, this is different. I don't think that the expectations were that high. I don't think that people have been as familiar with these players. They've seen this story before. The Raptors came out just guns a-blazing against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just ran them into the ground in the first quarter. You look like, okay, things are going to be different. Tough second, but the third JV takes over. But then down the stretch, I got a lot of text messages, same old Raptors. And while there were some things I liked from this game and that we're going to discuss over the next hour, it's really hard to push back against those texts or those tweets, which, again, we're seeing. What else is new? That's pathetic. That's not great. Most embarrassing game in Raptors history if they lose. Typical Raptors. They're scared. Raps are mentally scared of LeBron in Cleveland. Same old Raps. That's the stuff that's coming in across the feed. And again, I don't know how to say to people that that's not the case, because this is a team that had a very winnable game in front of them to the point where in the final seconds of the game, they had four opportunities to just end the game right there. Fred VanVleet has a wide open three. He bricks it. Goes right to DeMar DeRozan. Maybe he rushes it a little bit, but ultimately he had a clean look and it pops in and out. CJ Miles gets it. He puts it up, doesn't go in. Jonas Valanciunas, the 7-footer who dominated in the third and completely lost his game, his offensive touch in the fourth quarter, he can't hit the bunny. Goes to overtime, and I think Cleveland hit their shots. Toronto played some good defense. But ultimately, once again, you get a fairly clean look at an open shot, and it's a lot of the same themes. LeBron James comes for you. His supporting cast nails a bunch of threes. Cavaliers outside of LeBron, their three-point shooters were 52% tonight. And when the Raptors had big opportunities in multiple spots to hit those same threes, they missed them. 0 for 11 on their final 11 shots. One field goal in the final 5 minutes. The ball stopped moving. The head started dropping. The offense just looked like a complete cluster. They're just like the final few moments of the game is like when people say the Raptors play scared and people say that Cleveland lives in their heads and that LeBron James is the boogeyman, like after a game like that, like what's the pushback? What are you supposed to say? Anyway, next hour, you can join the show. You can tweet us at JD Bunkus, at Donnovan Bennett. Use the hashtag SNRaps. Going to try to get through a lot of them. I know that the people that are going to be watching this show are going to be searching for answers. We're going to try to provide some of them. We're going to try to say what we liked. But, yeah, I mean, what do you think, man? Like, that's the boogeyman. That's the field goal percentages that they go look. That's the looks. Like, it's like, how do you feel? You were in that room with me. Like, we were both reacting the same way.
1-888-666-0590.
Yeah, you're like
*590.
someone else other than you.
We talked before this series that there's a couple things they needed to do, and if they did them, they would win. They need to dominate inside, impose their will, especially when the Cavs go small. They needed to run the Cavs off the three-point line and not let anyone else get off for the Cavaliers. LeBron was going to get his because he's the greatest player of the generation. You can't let the others get involved. The others got involved tonight in a big way. And although they used that size and used JV to build that 14-point lead, they weren't able to continue to capitalize on it late. Jakob Poeltl didn't really give you much as the backup center.
Oh, come on. You can't be starting with Jakob Poeltl. Like, DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry had 18 points between them, 19 points, between them in the first quarter, and they had 14 points between them in the last three quarters.
Well, if you let me finish, Poeltl had 4 points and 6 rebounds. JV, although he started well, and although you look at the box score and it says he had 21 and 21, most of that was early work, and not much of that was against Tristan Thompson. And Tristan Thompson, when he guarded Jonas Valanciunas in this series a year ago, held him to less than a point per shot. And as soon as Ty Lue figured out, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have Jeff Green guarding Jonas.
Maybe or Kevin Love.
Maybe my rugged center who does a good job cleaning the glass, maybe he would be the answer to the guy who had the same amount of rebounds at the end of the first quarter as the rest of his team. And when Ty Lue kind of stumbled into that decision, the game changed from there. Especially when the Cavs play small, the Raptors need to dominate the 5 position, at least offensively anyways. And they didn't do that tonight. You think that in their bench unit that Jakob would be able to have a field day. That wasn't the case. And JV, although he did, again, if you look at the box score, you're going to think, wow, 21 and 21 and 34, the first Raptor ever to have more than 15 and 15 in a game. He broke a franchise record. That's great. But he had the game on his fingertips multiple times late and wasn't able to secure it. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, it's too bad that the Raptors couldn't translate Jonas Valanciunas to the fourth. I wondered a little bit as to how much of it was potentially fatigue, because he did really carry that team all the way through the third quarter. He was dominant. His third quarter with 13 points. They tried going with Kevin Love on him. It worked to no avail. He was either getting offensive rebounds, putting home bunnies, or going to the free throw line. Like, that's all he was doing all quarter long. And the Raptors, for moments, tried to run the offense through him in the fourth quarter and continued to try that. But I think he finished the quarter 1 of 6. Like, he just didn't have the same touch around the basket. He missed a few wide open looks. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same from Jonas Valanciunas. And similarly on the glass, I think you're right. Tristan Thompson in this game was the turning point. He was the Sportsnet game changer, if you want to put it that way. He came in, and Tristan Thompson finished with 9 offensive rebounds in that game. Like, he was just a terror. They could not keep him off the glass. He started limiting Jonas Valanciunas' offense. He guarded a whole bunch of different guys. He took away the paint, which the Raptors were getting to early and often. And it's funny because we spent so much of the season discussing, who was going to have to change their game for who, right? Like, we spend so much time. Well, what are the Raptors going to do? Can they play JV? Are they going to have to go small and try to match the Cavaliers small? And in the end, it was the Cavaliers and Ty Lue who came around to trying to play the Raptors brand of basketball, going a little bit bigger, pushing Kevin Love to the 4, having Thompson go at the 5, and beating up the Raptors bigs. Because when Toronto got those opportunities, and even to start the second half, it was what? It was Ibaka or JV. Like, those two guys were getting their points. Those two guys were getting deep post position. They were getting clean looks. Tristan Thompson swung this game around. He played excellent in Game 7, and he's going to be a massive X factor in this series. You would think that a guy who had the season that he had, who has played the way he has over the last calendar year, would be a welcome addition to the floor. But he was awesome. He played with energy. He played great defense. Again, he got all over the glass. He made his free throws, and it wasn't a ton of them, but he made the ones he needed to make. He's perfect from the line tonight. Yeah, 11 boards, 14 points for Tristan Thompson. And all of this after basically sitting the majority of the third quarter while the Raptors continued to feast and Ty Lue didn't do anything about it. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Valanciunas adjusts to this. I still think that he's the better player in the matchup. But, yeah, man, I look at that offense late and say that was a big part of it. Like, it can't just fall on one player in this game. The Raptors are a deep team, and there wasn't even the one guy who stepped up in the fourth. Like, who would you say was the best player in the Raptors in the fourth quarter? Like, was OG Anunoby playing defense on LeBron James?
Probably, to be honest. I mean, no one was good offensively. They were 0 for 11 in the last 4:15 in regulation to end the game. The offense wasn't much better in overtime. And it's not even. I was surprised Tristan Thompson didn't start the game after he saved your season in Game 7. But they wanted George Hill in the starting lineup. They wanted to be able to guard Lowry on the perimeter. Fair enough. Obviously, I think he's going to start Game 2 after this performance. But we talk about Kevin Love in his ability to stretch the floor and how difficult he is to guard. Now that's going to be a matchup problem for the Raptors bigs, specifically Jonas Valanciunas. I thought Toronto did a good job on him. He only scored 7 points tonight, only hit 1 3. But he grabbed 13 rebounds. And we forget that when he was a Timberwolf, he was a star by grabbing rebounds and starting their break. And the inability to close possessions and get rebounds, whether it was Tristan on the offensive glass or Kevin Love chipping in with 13 as well. I think despite the 21 that JV brought down was a big issue for them, especially late in the game. And again, the other issue we talked about is, well, this team, if not for LeBron, they can't score. And the way he gets others involved is penetration and kicking out for threes. So if he's going to have to score 120 points to beat you, fair enough. But you can't let the other guys get off and get in rhythm, because that hurts you not only when he's on the court, but then they've got the rhythm for when he's off the court. And after he just played a series where none of his teammates scored 20 points in the entire series, the first time that's happened to him in his career, you come out Game 1 and J.R. Smith, 20 points. LeBron, you kept him to 26. You think that's a win. Kyle Korver with 19. And obviously, Tristan was 14. A lot of that was junk plays and free throws. And then, okay, well, how did JR get their points? They both hit 5 threes. Because if those guys aren't hitting from 3, they're not scoring. Yeah. And so it sounds simple, but if you stay home on those guys and deter them from shooting threes, they can't score, thus they can't beat you. And I think that's the frustrating part. It's not just that they lost, not just that they blew a double-digit lead, not just that the lead should have been bigger, is that there were very simple ways that you could have avoided this outcome. And there was really only 2 ways for the Cavs to get back into the game, and that's the way they did. I think that's the disappointing part, is because the blueprint was there.
Yeah, Kevin Love, 3 of 13 tonight. Imagine I told you these statistics before the game started. Hey, man, Kevin Love's going to be 3 of 13 with 7 points. And LeBron James is going to be 12 of 30, 1 of 8 from 3. And he's going to have his 13. He's going to have 26 and 13. But you would have said, okay. I would have showed you the tape of OG Anunoby, who, I mean, if there's one thing to take away from this game is that OG Anunoby is not scared. That while a lot of the Toronto Raptors players folded in the fourth quarter, and there's no other way of putting it. Like, they choked. They choked that game away, and their star players didn't do anything. Like, again, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, 14 points through 3 of the 3 final quarters. Just nothing. The only field goal that DeMar DeRozan had in the fourth quarter was off of a broken inbounds play where he snaked his way to the basket. Like, he and Lowry looked completely broken. Neither of them really could do anything. Some just sloppy sets, like turning the ball over, like not getting an inbounds play, even having, like, after burning a timeout, coming out of a timeout, not being able to inbounds the basketball, getting a 5-second call. Like, just sloppy, just really sloppy plays. But the one guy who I really didn't think folded tonight and who really stepped up and played big moments and was just consistent whistle to whistle was OG Anunoby. This kid came out and gave him 30 minutes. He played more than Serge Ibaka tonight. And I think that part of what held LeBron James to 12 of 30, a big part of it, was OG Anunoby fighting through screens all night long, not letting LeBron James establish deep post position, right? Because once LeBron James is on the block and you're in isolation, like, help's coming or he's cooking you. But if he's catching the ball away from the basket, you have a chance. And OG Anunoby played well enough to give the Raptors a chance for large portions of this game. Like, I thought he played with real heart and he played with real guts. And he finished with, 7 points? I don't think he scored he finished with 7 points. He hit one of his 3 threes, which is usually what you ask from him from this series. Like, you don't want him to shrink, and still does this thing where if you turn your head on him and you completely leave him at the 3-point line, he'll cut to the basket and be a wide open outlet. But outside of OG and outside of third quarter, like, I'll take out the first quarter because everyone was pretty brilliant in the first. But outside of OG, wire to wire, like, consistently through that entire game, tough to find a Raptor who didn't shrink in big moments. And I will take the pressure a little bit off Fred VanVleet because, again, I thought that he gave them a gutsy effort. And I know he missed the 2 big threes at the end of the game, or at the end of both periods, the fourth quarter and overtime. But you were noticing it a lot that he was favoring the shoulder. It looked like he bumped it in a transition play at one point, and it never really looked comfortable. But I got to say, just finishing my thought on OG, I don't think I've ever felt better about OG Anunoby. Like, he's had a lot of great moments as a rookie, and he's given you a lot of reason to believe that he can grow as a player. But out of all, I guess the real only positive from tonight that I can really come away with is that I've never felt better about what the ceiling of this player is, especially defensively. And I know LeBron's tired, and there's excuses to be made for LeBron James fans. But after the last 2 matchups that we saw where OG really couldn't hang with LeBron, and LeBron shot over 62% against OG, to see what we saw tonight from the rookie was really, really impressive.
And a lot of people thought, oh, LeBron's pulling a Kaiser Soche. He's not really tired. Come on. I think he's tired.
Mm-hmm.
1 of 6 from the free throw line, 1 of 8 from 3. That's your legs. To me, that means that you're tired. And he got to the rim a little bit, but when we had the back hall here at Sportsnet, so we could watch the interactions in between whistles, in between commercial breaks. And I said to you during the broadcast, as he was huffing and puffing and trying to speak, when you're so tired, you're trying to speak, and you can't even really get the words out. That's what he looked like on the bench. And I think OG did a good job of just giving him body punches.
Yeah.
Just continuing to take his legs away from him, make him work for everything, make him pound the basketball, and hopefully over the course of a series and a game, that attrition kind of continues to pick up and pick up and pick up. Again, 26 for LeBron. You'll take that on most nights. He still had a triple-double. Don't get me wrong. He was still brilliant. 26, 11, and 13. But I think he had to work for those 26. They were in a quiet 26. OG did a good job. And I think if you're going to watch this game back, or if you're going to do the
I don't think
game
very many
in an
people
hour,
are going to do that, Doug.
And really look at what went wrong.
Too many.
I think what is instructive is going to be overtime. Because this was the chance. You got some new sets. You had 36 hours of prep before they did. You're rested. You hit them with a quick punch early. You still got game 1. You see how they react. Then you go to their place for game 3 and 4. But by the end of this game, it was virtually game 2. Like, both sides have felt each other out. The Cavs had taken the Raptors' best punch and hung around and punched back. And so that overtime, I think, was indicative of what the rest of this series is going to be like. So now what? You've played your best card. You've had the rest and the prep. You had home court. That was stolen from you. So now what is the response? What is the response emotionally, but also what is the response schematically now with the Cavs knowing exactly who you are as a basketball team?
Again, going back to what we discussed in the final of the Wizards series about trying to put ghosts behind you and trying to play unafraid and believing in things like clutch. I look at the play of, I'm sorry, but I do look at the play of DeMar DeRozan a little differently than Kyle Lowry's. I know that both of them shrunk. Neither of them really contributed. Lowry, some awful turnovers. He had 4 of them. DeMar had 2. But when you look at this game, I think that the main thing that you point to is, okay, there was moments where, the cultural reset and trusting in others, it happened because DeMar found Fred VanVleet for a really good pass at the end of that game, right? And they found Serge Ibaka in the corner right before that, and he missed a wide open 3. And really, the Raptors, the only thing that really stopped them from that huge self-implosion was LeBron James jumping underneath the leg of Serge Ibaka, which is absolutely a foul and is a dirty play. But I think that tonight, in terms of if anyone is going to have to reflect on this, because you can look at some things like Serge needs to be better, clearly 0 of 3 from 3, missed some just very clean looks, didn't play very well for the vast majority of this game, gave them a couple of good minutes at the beginning of the third quarter, and then some decent minutes closing, but that mostly just defensively. Raptors play good defense for large stretches, for good stretches of this game. Got stops when the ball stopped moving for Cleveland in an isolation. And again, a lot because of OG Anunoby. We're looking at the highlight reel right now. Even some of the shots LeBron hit over OG were really, really tough in this game.
But they were mid-range, though.
Yeah.
But he kills you at the rim, not to interrupt, and from 3. and he forced them to a lot of mid-range shots, which LeBron has added to his game, but they're still, from a degree of difficulty standpoint, much tougher. And I thought OG played the scouting report smart.
So I don't put a lot of – I know, again, Valanciunas wasn't nearly as good as he was in the third quarter, and there was a lot of bunnies he missed, and he didn't have quite the same touch as we touched on. But I look at this game, and I have a hard time pointing the finger at anyone other than the two star players of this team. Because, again, DeRozan had some moments. Like the block on Kevin Love was really nice. Like it really was.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he would be coming out of the funk every once in a while. Like you'd be looking at him and saying, okay, here it comes. Finally, DeRozan's going to do something. And he just never could. And I don't know how I'm assessing their play in the fourth because they just looked uncomfortable. And it just looked like, the Raptors, we've criticized them for this before. We've criticized them for this before about how they get into their actions really late. And I thought that was happening a lot in the fourth quarter. Like a lot of dribbling, a lot of waiting around, a lot of people standing, nobody moving away from the ball. And then what did it become? It became a lot of DeMar DeRozan dribbling the air to the basketball while four other guys stood around. And guess what? That hasn't worked. And it hasn't worked in the past, and it doesn't work now. And he and Kyle Lowry for multiple possessions late looked shook. And I don't think that you have a meltdown like that where in the final 5 minutes you have the one field goal and it's DeRozan on a broken play without mostly pointing the blame at those two guys tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I did think he kicked it twice to Fred for open threes that if they go in, we're probably saying that is the culture reset identified right there. Like
I still don't think that we would look at this performance by either of these players and say that's enough, right?
Well, I think it's funny. We're talking a lot about the fourth quarter and closing the game, and I almost feel like in a weird way this game was lost in the second quarter. Like where you against this team, against this player, you need to give yourself a buffer. And you're telling me that going into the half, DeMar has 15 points on 7 of 10 shooting. Kyle has 10 and 6. LeBron has 11 points, and you're up 3? Like, there were stretches, whether it was the turnovers or it was just some odd decision-making and some quick breakdowns on defense, that you could have stretched that lead that was 14 to 20 to 23 to 24. And then a group who, if some believe are mental midgets and choke late, then a group at least has some wiggle room, and then they can play as front runners. And, there's that boxing term, you can't just beat the champ, you have to knock the champ out. I feel like they almost had to knock the champ out.
See, to me, the third was more discouraging that JV put up what he did, and the Raptors stretched the lead once again to double digits. And it looked like they had all the momentum, and then all of a sudden in comes Tristan Thompson, and all of a sudden there's some breakdowns and some threes. And, man, Kyle Korver, I'll tell you what, what did he finish with? Because his night was pretty nice. He finished with a lot of points, 19 points, but he was 5 of 12 from 3. And how many of those misses was he just, like, wide open, where there wasn't anybody within a few feet of him? Like, Kyle Korver could have even done more damage tonight, and I thought the Raptors got fortunate with some of that. So, yeah, to win the quarter by 2 points after JV had one of the best quarters in Raptors playoff history, yeah, I thought that was really discouraging. But there were so many moments, again, in the fourth quarter where the Raptors had a 5-point lead, and they would get possession, and they weren't able to stretch that lead out from larger than 5. And again, it goes back to the same thing that we've heard before. We can point to those final 2 plays where DeRozan kicked it. But for the most part, the ball stopped moving. It stuck to people. DeRozan was over-dribbling. Kyle Lowry was not getting free, and nobody was moving off the ball, and veterans didn't hit big shots like Serge Ibaka and Jonas Valanciunas. So I don't look at that as I view that very much under the same lens as the Wizards game 4, where the Raptors crumbled late, and it's still something. It's still a hurdle for this franchise, and that DeRozan and those wine uniforms, like they act as the boogeyman for this team.
And I think moving forward, you mentioned how many times is Kyle Korver going to miss all those shots. I mean, how many times is LeBron going to shoot 16% from the free throw line? It's not going to happen again. How many times is Jordan Clarkson going to play again in this series? He might not.
I wouldn't play him ever.
So you're not going to have that -6 in 12 minutes. Larry Nance Jr. didn't play at all. I could see him
There's
playing.
No need for him to.
Who?
Larry Nance Jr.
But I think the Cavs kind of figure out we don't have to go small against.
Yeah,
this
that's
team.
what we're saying. It's like you don't have to go small against the Raptors. You can possibly beat them big, and you get that from Tristan Thompson. I mean, it reminded me of the first Cavs run into the finals when they lost everybody, and Tristan Thompson was the second best player before he got paid. That looked like getting paid pre-Kardashian. Tristan Thompson was out there tonight. I don't think he responded very well to getting booed by the hometown crowd.
But aside from George Hill, I think what Ty Lue has learned is those guys that my front office traded for, Rodney Hood, who was
trash,
1 for 5 and a -3, Clarkson and Nance, who was a DNP CD. I don't need them. I'm going to roll with the guys who have hit big shots and big playoff moments before. And are they aging, and do they struggle, some of them defensively at times? Yeah. But the guys who are brought in to energize this team aren't giving me all that much energy. So I'm just going to roll with the heads that know what playoff basketball is about. And they did tonight.
I thought that when LeBron made the comments after Game 7 about how he was tired, and yes, he might be tired, he might be telling the truth, but I thought that was almost LeBron James because he's going 0 dark 23 and he can't go subtweet people on social media. I thought that was his version of the subtweet saying to his teammates, listen, you can't shoot 31%. You can't all be terrible. We can't have only one guy, Kevin Love, average double-digit points in the series. Other people need to step up. And again, you're right. It was veterans. It was guys who have been there before, who have seen that formula work, and they all came through, and LeBron got them involved, and it worked out for them. Because, again, yeah, Jeff Green, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, all in double digits tonight. 4 guys who really struggled in the last series. And, yeah, the Raptors got to take those guys away, but I don't think you're going to get too many gifts where, again, you had the benefit of rest. You had a tired LeBron. You played LeBron well. He didn't have his strongest game. I know, again, he's the triple-double and the incredible play for some stretches, but from what we've seen in that Pacers series, like LeBron James can play a lot better than he did tonight. And you caught him at the right time, and you weren't able to capitalize.
Also, his 0 dark 23 is a fake one this year. He's still putting stuff on Instagram stories.
Oh, is he?
Like, that still counts, LeBron.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's not on your
counts.
actual Instagram feed.
Yeah, that absolutely counts.
That's a diet 0 dark
That absolutely
23.
counts. But, yeah, a couple of things. So I want to just quickly hit on, before we get to some of the other stuff and before we get to some of the people, the plays at the end of the game, because people were looking for a flagrant foul on Kevin Love, which should have put the Raptors at the line and then keep the ball. I actually think it was a wash because DeMar DeRozan was all over Kevin Love and there was no call. He should have been called for a foul a lot earlier. And I know that, hey, listen, you got to call it as it is, but I'm not sure as to why they didn't go review it. But it was really hard for me to overly complain about that when, yeah, DeRozan's draped all over him and Kevin Love's not getting a foul call. Like, I thought the Raptors got a break on that already.
I agree. I think it was probably fair the way it was adjudicated.
But all the things that get reviewed.
But it's weird because, for one, DeMar's reaching in, which is why he got caught with the elbow. So if you're not going to call him for the reach in, and you didn't see that evidently, or you didn't think it was egregious enough, well then when Kevin Love hits him with the elbow, and elbows to the head is something that you've mandated as something you're concerned about from a player safety standpoint, how are you not looking at it? I think it ended up turning out properly because, as you pointed out, Kevin Love is just trying to protect the ball. He doesn't know DeMar's there. It's not his fault. If you would have called the foul, and DeMar's just digging in there because he's trying to tie him up for a jump ball.
So do you think they should have reviewed it?
By the letter of the law, they probably should have. But if I'm a Cavs fan, I'm saying it shouldn't have been a foul in the first place.
Yeah.
And I hear that as well.
Yeah. So again, I think that one's a draw. If they're going to call it that way, they probably should have reviewed it. But ultimately, tough for me to be disappointed. Last one for me, anyways. The way that the final play was decided, where the Raptors played for the win instead of the bucket and the potential stop, or play for a miss and then you send him to the free throw line and try to tie it with a 3. You like that decision?
I think you go early and give yourself a chance on the boards.
Especially since maybe the way LeBron James is shooting free throws, that you can get the ball to him and put him on the stripe.
Well, just especially because you're not hitting anything from the field.
Yeah.
So if listen, if they make a shot to win it, we're not talking about it. But if you asked me going into the possession what I would have preferred, that's what I would have said.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm not second guessing it because I think that to try to play to potentially go to another overtime, even though the Raptors were getting stops and they were playing well on defense. Yeah, I think that they had to try, or that not that they had to, but trying to win it makes some sense to me. Is this the worst loss in Raptors history? Do you put this past Vince Carter, the graduation game? Because to me, I actually do, because I think that the expectations this time around and the recent history, like there are different factors at play. Like, yeah, the Raptors, that was an elimination game and this was not, and there still is a series to be played. But I got to say, man, I think it's the worst Raptors loss of all time, considering the way that you've been bullied by Cleveland. They've knocked you out. They're 2-8 against you in the last two playoffs. LeBron James has come in here and basically run the show for the last couple of seasons. That your superstar players look to get rid of some ghosts. You had this wonderful opportunity in front of you. The world was watching, and you blew it. You frankly, you flat out blew it. And I don't know, man. Maybe I'm being throwing some recency bias in this, but to me, it's the worst. To me, this is the worst loss in franchise history.
I don't know if I'm going to go there.
So
I don't want to
be
the
second worst.
I don't know if I'm going to be the millennial and trying to microwave my thoughts and forget about anything that's happened. It's the second round, and it's game one, and we are close to it now because we just watched it. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
I've never felt that bad after a Raptors loss. Ever. Never, ever, ever. Hasn't even come close. You know what? Honestly, like full disclosure.
But that's like saying you've never felt that bad right after someone breaks up with
and
you.
I hear that.
It's wrong.
And I hear that. And I'll sit on it. But I've never, and it wasn't even like for me personally. Like I felt for all the Raptors fans that were down at Jurassic Park and the people that were in that building. Like we were joking around. The T-shirt guys, the last couple of minutes, the T-shirt guys and gals are running around like, doing their thing like, what? Like, you want a T-shirt? And it's the final 2 minutes. And everyone in that building is like, please get out of my face. Please don't talk to me about a free T-shirt right now. I already got one. It came with my seat, and I just don't want to look at it and talk to anyone. I'm sweating from everywhere. I'm sweating from places I didn't know I could sweat from. Just give me some space. Give me a minute here. And you go, what? T-shirt, what? Like, that was
how
tough.
they do that? Have you worked in game ops?
Man, maybe with those moves I can. Okay. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think it was one of the worst. They'll try to regroup. Is the series...
Do you remember Vince being guarded by Aaron McKee for the entire series? Gets to that spot, misses that shot. Do you actively remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And you really
I remember
think
where I was when that shot
worse?
happened. Yeah, well, I mean, I was a lot younger, and so I think you care about sports in a different way.
I don't know if you're any more mature than you are.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm here for that. I'm just saying, like, to me, this one, considering all the outside, like that Raptors team to me didn't have the same level of expectations. Like it was the peak of one of their greatest star in franchise history, and I don't want to hear any of that DeRozan stuff, especially after tonight about who's the best franchise player or not. But I look at this.
Didn't you already say he's the best franchise player?
I mean, he's the best from a longevity standpoint, but he's not the greatest.
Weren't you like the president of that club?
No. That's Alvin Williams is the president of that club.
But didn't you say his jersey should be hoisted first?
It should be, because the way that Vince Carter left. Again, it's more of circumstances thing. Now we're going down a completely different rabbit hole. Anyways, so let's get to some of these tweets. And again, let's get to some of these calls. 1-888-666-0590. We still got Buddy on the line. I'll get to him first. What's his name? Eddie in Mississauga.
What's going on, Eddie?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
I mean, we just spent the last half hour saying how horrible it is going, Eddie. Are you from Cleveland? Did you watch that game, Eddie?
Yeah, I watched the whole game, and I was on my, I was screaming my lungs out the whole time.
Ugh.
But I can tell you this much, I'm not as sad as you, because you know what? I see potential. I see a lot of potential in this team that we never saw before. I mean, if you guys watched the Indiana series, this is the best game Cleveland has ever played in the playoffs, including the last game. I mean, LeBron James got support this game, and we lost by a point. And I'm looking at my team, and I'm seeing, DeRozan not playing well, Lowry not hitting shots, Valanciunas, even did he miss a lot of buckets at the end. Steady VanVleet didn't hit the shot that he's supposed to hit all the time. So I'm seeing a lot of positives.
But Eddie,
and I think
No, you know what, Eddie? I appreciate you because, for you to watch that game and still feel positively and feel good, like that says more about you than it does anything else. And that's it's good to be you.
I'm older than you guys, and I can tell you this. I remember that Vince Carter shot, and I remember we were in Philadelphia, and when we were watching the game in Philadelphia, we had our jerseys on. We were going to jump down in Philadelphia and raise it all up and everything. So
be safe.
I understand that shot. And I know how much hurt we felt when we felt that shot.
But
I'm
Eddie,
telling you right now.
But Eddie, you mentioned the Cavs played their best game in Game 1 better than they played in the Indiana series. There's two teams on the floor, Eddie, and it's all relative. And do you not think the Cavs looked the best because they were playing against a team that didn't really test them late the way the Pacers did?
No, you guys made the one thing you guys didn't say, which is the most important thing you guys should have thought about. Dwayne Casey made a mistake. He had 36 hours to see what he can do with Cleveland. He knows how to play LeBron. He's played him many times. Then he saw something new. Indiana did something new. They let LeBron score. They said, hey, LeBron, if you're going to hit 45 points, go ahead. We're going to stay home with the shooter. We're going to knock out your other team. Your team is not going to get nothing.
Yeah.
You're getting no support.
Yeah. Hey, Eddie.
He didn't do it.
I agree with you, buddy. Like that, I think that was still the game plan. Like if you look at like what the Raptors did, they weren't doubling on the ball. And thanks for the call. They weren't doubling LeBron James throughout that game. That wasn't like what we've seen in the past where the Raptors load up on him and he's swinging the ball around and finding different guys. Like the other guys got involved in transition. They got involved off of turnovers. They got involved off of breakdowns from other players, from switching, from a lot of off-ball screens that were run for those other guys. Like there was a clear, speaking of like coaches' strategies, it was very clear that Ty Lue wanted to get those guys going and that he needed to take the breaks off of LeBron a little bit. And that off the ball, them running screens for one another were opening players up. And I don't think that this was something where the Raptors made some fault in terms of the way that they handled LeBron James. Because, again, as we said earlier, the one thing that was a real positive anyways from both of us was the way they did play LeBron James, and that was with OG Anunoby straight up and Pascal Siakam straight up, and both guys did a decent job.
There was the stretch in the second quarter, DeMar being the biggest culprit of trying to help OG when he didn't need to. When they did start to help, they did start to trap.
There were a few moments for sure. And even in overtime, Kyle Lowry trying to reach in the breadbasket when Serge Ibaka is down in the paint, ready to help anyways. And he leaves J.R. Smith and for a shovel pass and he knocks down a wide open three. Like there were moments, but overall you would agree that the problem here was not loading up on LeBron.
No, but it just was odd that they deviated away from that plan, which was working.
Mm-hmm. So, again, a couple of tweets. I mean, it's hard to go through this because it's basically all the same tweet but different variations of it. Like Len H, at Canadian guy, unbelievable, couldn't score a basket most of the fourth quarter, epic fail, hashtag big time choke. Rusty, crap, I said Cleveland in 6, might be Cleveland in 4. That was a gift wrap for them. And, yeah, I mean, kind of was. When you don't score field goals down the stretch, gets a little gift wrap for you. Raps aren't mentally tough enough. This is from Toby Tuna. To move on, how does your best player or second best player not take that shot? They can't win in Cleveland, so this is over after game 1.
Do you have a problem with who took the shot?
No, not at all. For the final 2 shots, I mean, if we're counting the final 2 shots being 2 Fred VanVleet shots, not the Jonas Valanciunas tip, I think.
Yeah,
I can't believe that's a magic ball. It felt like the magic bullet, watching that thing bounce around in ways that were almost inconceivable. The DeMar one, I don't know how that one didn't fall down, but that was awful.
Because I did see a lot of that. Fred VanVleet is a great backup player, but the guys you want taking that shot are the 2 guys who make money. This is not me saying
I know you're not, but
I think the best shot
laughing.
is the open shot.
Yes, and I'm also laughing at that because Fred VanVleet was just getting the Superman cape put on him, and everyone was parading him through town saying, oh, the Raptors are back because you're back. All hail Fred VanVleet. Give him all the money. He's the hero. Hey, you know what they missed was Fred VanVleet's clutch element, and then Fred VanVleet misses 2 threes, and people are saying, why Fred VanVleet? How could it be Fred VanVleet? Like, that's fine. My only, small part of it is that I'm fine with him taking the shot because he was on the floor and he was wide open. I do wonder because he really did push the one that they missed in regulation. Like, that one was a really awful miss, and I wonder at that point.
Wide left.
Yeah, but don't you wonder, he missed that so badly, I considered if the shoulder was still hurt. And the one in overtime, it was a little contested. I'm not sure that one I like as much, but the one to win the game in regulation was totally fine. Our friend AJ at Azon798. It's very simple. Raptors couldn't make a shot in the final minutes. However, I don't feel completely demolished. because I know we can do better. Hashtag SN Raps again. So there is some Sunny K at Little Aristotle. Disheartening. A case of missed wide open 3-pointers, putbacks, and free throws. Casey says it best. It's a make or miss league. Hashtag SN Raps. The ref stuff I'm not even going to entertain because, again, we've talked about the refs. Eric Watson, DeRozan reverted back to his old self down the stretch. Got to keep going to JV.
I think everyone knows the Raptors can do better. I think everyone expects them to do better. I don't think anyone would be surprised if they come out in game 2 and win by 20.
Sure.
I think the problem here is now you have to get one on the road. It's simple math. In order to win this series, you have to go to the Q and win a game. And we both said Raptors in 7. And I kind of said that thinking they'll probably have to win all 4 at home.
I did think that this was kind of a must-win game for them because of the mental reasons that we've talked about. You and I disagree to the extent that they haunt this team, but I can't help but, you know, when you just miss something and you had a chance, and those are the things that you think of the longest, right? Like those are the things that you can't get over. And to bring it into a sports analogy, I think that my favorite football team, the Seattle Seahawks, never recovered because they had a ball on the 1-yard line and couldn't punch it in and lost a football game. And it tore people apart because people couldn't get over it and they couldn't stop thinking about it. And I kind of feel that way for the Raptors, where there's this was death by a million little cuts. This was all these paper cuts that dropped you in this game. And I think that all these guys are going to pour their thinking about it over and over and over again. If they can put it behind them and they can come out and they can win games, like all the power to them. But everything that we've seen in the past and everything we saw tonight leads me to believe otherwise. Omar, let's go back to the phones. Omar, what's up, man?
Kind of deflated, man. I mean, typical game 1 loss. You're winning the entire game and you just drop it at the last few minutes. I mean, it's just frustrating. Somebody tell Valanciunas to stop playing volleyball around the hoop. He got to catch the ball and go up strong. Like, nobody's going to block him. Other than that, he'll get fouled, you know?
You know, I think that's an interesting comment. I'm just going to cut you off right there just quickly because I do think that there were some moments where I don't know why, but he did seem to get a little too, like, I think there was one play where he thought he was going to get contact, and so he kind of just, like, went up really strong and blew it. But you're right. There were a couple opportunities where I was like, yo, just dunk that. Like, throw that down hard. Do what you were doing before. And he did seem to, like everybody else on that team, choke up a little bit in the fourth quarter. Anyways, go up through the rest of your thoughts.
Well, before we get to that, and we also haven't talked about the DeMar put-back two-handed push shot without coming back down on the ground. Like, I almost feel like he didn't know how much time was left on the clock. Otherwise, why aren't you coming down and going back up strong?
Oh, yeah. He definitely was like, I don't know. Like, he wasn't sure of how much time was left. There's no way he shoots it like that.
But there's like 4 seconds
No.
left.
Hey, listen, I'm not saying that he didn't make a bit of a mistake because clearly had he just caught it, gathered, and gone up, he probably ends that basketball game. So, yeah, it's a point's well taken. I do think he had to have a better internal clock. Anyway, sorry. What was the rest of your thought, buddy?
Well, and also, I mean, every single time, the last caller saying that it's a good thing that the other players played well in Cleveland, I think it's a bad thing because every single time these role players step up against the Raptors. Look at Mike Scott in the last series. It's always some random guy off the bench or someone just going off on the Raptors every single time and breaks our hearts. And, you know, it's something they got to make adjustments. I'm glad that JV stayed in the game in the third quarter when they went small. They got to continue doing that, but DeRozan and Lowry got to step up in the clutch, man, and they can't falter. I mean, it's a psychological thing at this point. It's so frustrating to watch. The Raptors are a better team. I just know they can do better. And all this American media talking smack down south.
Yeah.
Right now, we can't defend them, but the Raptors can do better, man. They can win the series.
Hey, man, thanks for the call.
It's going to be a long 48 hours listening to our friends south of the border talk about this team.
I mean, again, it's impossible to blame them. If you don't like it, if you don't like it, change it. Like, if you don't like them calling you chokers, if you don't like them saying you shrink.
The fans can't change it, though. They have to read Skip Bayless's tweets.
They don't have to. No, they don't. And in fact, actually, this is my PSA to Toronto media members, including yourself. This is my intervention to you. Stop retweeting Skip Bayless and saying Toronto whatever with Skip Bayless. All Toronto media. That's his whole goal. But yeah, how are you supposed to push back to American media who's like today on Good Show on my show with Ben Ennis, the radio show 1 to 4, we were talking to Tim Bontemps and he said the same thing. Until I see Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan play a complete game against the Cleveland Cavaliers and take care of business, I'm going to have my doubts. And DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, as I've mentioned a few times on the show, had 14 points between the two of them in 3 quarters of basketball at home against the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the worst defensive teams in basketball. Neither of them could assert themselves. First quarter, DeMar's getting to his spots. Kyle's pulling up for threes. Both guys look confident. Game gets bigger, moment gets bigger. LeBron James grows taller, and the boogeyman wipes him out. Like, that's just the way it is. DeMar and Kyle don't like it. Play better. Like, that's just the way you got to do it. Crushing missed opportunity. Well, sorry, you got a tweet that you want to get to?
Yeah. That was just a pathetic possession. At Real Skip Bayless. I had faith in the Cavs tonight, mostly because I don't trust the Raptors in games of this magnitude, and that's what just happened. We're going to hear that for the next 24 to 48 hours.
FR09 tweets in, should DeLon have been in that last play in overtime to hit that open shot instead of Fred VanVleet, who looked hurt and had missed the same shot to win the game in regulation? Hashtag SNRaps. I think that's, again, the question. I'm not even sure if it should be DeLon, but, like, considering the shoulder injury, like, what you see from Fred, let's put it this way. If Fred VanVleet can't play that next game, that actually makes this an interesting question.
I think Fred was in not necessarily to take and make a shot. I think he was in so that you have another good decision maker on the floor. Having said that, if you're looking for someone else to be a knockdown shooter in that spot, or at least to provide some spacing, I don't think it would have been DeLon. I think, if anything, it would have been CJ Miles.
Yeah.
The only issue is, in the event of a turnover, now you have CJ Miles stuck playing defense.
Yeah. Again, some people are weighing in at JD Bunkis. The Barkley curse is real. Like, that's pretty good. At Barrio Corp, this was a Game 7. This was the boogeyman appearing for real. I agree. Worst Raptors loss ever. Makes me feel justified in saying Game 1 loss equals series loss. I do wonder about this because before this game started, I was actually saying that. And now I'm trying to be a little bit more optimistic and saying all of a sudden, like, I'm kind of changing the goalposts for myself and saying, well, it's not over till it's over and blah, blah, blah. But I was saying that before today. And I think if I look at it truthfully, like, I'll be thrilled if the Raptors win the series and if they do come back. But that, like, of all the games, whereas Game 7, of all the times Kyle Lowry, like Game 1, Game 2, Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, that were real Game 7s for the Raptors, this one felt the most important out of them all, and they blew it. And the margin for error is just so ridiculously slim against this Cavs team, and you had it so close. Like, it's hard for me to imagine you come back in a series after losing a game like that. I don't think my position changes. I think that this was, like, I think that the Cavaliers are going to win the series. I think that they are. And I don't know what the Vegas odds are, but the Cavs opened as plus 190 favorites, and I'm guessing that that's what the Raptors probably are close to after today.
Yeah. I mean, it's one loss, and you need to lose 4 times in order to lose a series. But it's almost like soccer. This was one loss, but it really should count for 2 in the aggregate. Because given that you were at home, given that you had a big lead, given that you were rested and had more time to prepare, yeah, this one stings a little bit more, and it's going to take even more, especially because, again, you gave them your best punch. You showed them all of your cards. It's going to be even more difficult to muster another 4 performances that would have been better than this. So in the event that you have that opportunity to get more wins, I think this was so much of a missed opportunity by the Raptors.
A couple of quick notes from the sheet. One is that the Raptors early in the game did a really good job against the non-LeBron James lineups. They outscored them 7-2. That was in the first half. Took LeBron James out. The Raptors punished them. Later in the game was not the same thing. And it was very small, and this isn't very many points, but with LeBron out in the final few minutes, 2:33 of the third quarter, the Cavs outscored the Raptors 5-4. And I think that in a big spot like that at the end of that frame where, again, you had an opportunity to stretch it out a bit, to grow that from more than just a 2-point quarter win, that was a real missed opportunity in the game. Other thing about Fred VanVleet, I really do hope that he's going to be okay and that he didn't re-aggravate it, because the risk of re-aggravation is high with that injury for about a month after it happens. Like, that was the big thing with him, is wondering if he could take screens and contact. But the bench mob early on, like, if we're going to talk about that second quarter being a bit of a missed opportunity, like, Yeah, they played the Cavs to a standstill at the beginning of the fourth, and that was welcomed. And overall, they were okay, but they didn't look awesome at the beginning of the fourth or at the beginning of the second quarter. And I did think that Fred was just super important because he was, again, the guy that looked the most comfortable offensively in the unit. Like, he found Pascal and Jakob around the basket, even if those two didn't finish all the time. And DeLon Wright just never really found a way to insert himself offensively in this game. Like, he was same thing for bench mob. Like, it was getting late in the clock, and he was kind of hoisting up some long floaters that were really difficult contested over bigs. So I wasn't really that great. I didn't like either of those two things. The other part, the only foul call I had a problem with in the entire game too was with Fred VanVleet, where he got locked up with LeBron James. And LeBron James elbowed him in the head and then shoved him away, and somehow Fred VanVleet got a foul call for that. Still don't really get that. And then lastly, Serge Ibaka, and let's talk about him a little bit, because I look at Serge's game tonight, and it leaves me lacking yet again. He had his decent moments. He finished +7, but 2 rebounds. Like, who are you, like, how are you not getting anything? I know JV's maybe scooping them all up because he had 21, but 2 rebounds and missing all your open threes. Like, you gotta get more from Serge Ibaka. He's got to find a way to either knock down a shot or not turn the ball over or not take a stupid foul like he did early in this ball game, and not wait until the third quarter to give the team any positive impact. So hurt them again tonight too.
Here's why Serge's impact is really, really big in this series. Because you're pretty much playing down a power forward or a big in your normal rotation. For me, your position is who you guard. And for long stretches, Pascal Siakam is going to be guarding LeBron James, who virtually plays point guard at times for the Cavs. So in order to match up with a Kevin Love, with a Tristan Thompson, you're going to need Ibaka to play big and play minutes. You're going to need, obviously, JV to continue to play big. And the fact that, again, Love had 13 rebounds and Ibaka had 2, not a good look. So it's not as if Serge is struggling. Oh, we're just going to slide Pascal into the 4.
Does
well, not really.
Spacing.
It's 100%. And we saw that tonight with Pascal, Serge, and JV on the floor at the same time. Serge really has to play well and play, I think, big minutes, because there's going to be so many situations. Well, Pascal is not actually a 4. He's really a 3 in this lineup because he's guarding LeBron so much on the defensive end.
I'm looking up at the television, and Lowry and DeRozan are at the podium, and they're wearing all black, and it's very appropriate because they're at their own funeral because the Raptors are dead. It's true. Like, they're toast. Let's be real. The more I'm thinking about this, like, yes, you're toast. The Raptors are toast. I'm fine. I'm fine with coming back and walking this back. I'll do a big apology.
Tuesday, May 1st.
I will.
The series ends
on
May 13th.
Who's his name? Sebastian. What's up?
What's up, Seb?
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Yeah, this horribleness. We're watching, like I said, we're watching DeRozan and Lowry at their own funeral.
Cheer JD up, Seb.
Yeah, you know what? We know those guys are waste from time, right? But that's not even the point. But I'm going to talk to you about Dwayne Casey. You guys are talking about Fred VanVleet, right? But did you guys watch the game? He benched Fred VanVleet basically for the last 4 minutes of regular time, and then brought him out to take the last shot, and then benched him again for overtime, and then brought him out to take
that's how things. That's how.
And bring him out to take the last shot.
All right, cool.
Right?
Bye, Seb. Yeah, bye.
Seb.
Okay, turn Seb's mic off.
Okay, relax.
Seb,
let's Seb get his frustration out.
Seb, this is the thing. Is like, that's what you do. You final offensive plays of the game. You bring in your best shooters. Duh. Everybody does that. Did we watch the game? If you ever start coming on the show, did we watch the game? You're gone. We obviously watched the game. And also, if you want to complain to me about bringing in offensive players or defensive players for final possessions of the game, you got to watch more games. You got to know how basketball works. So
okay, relax. It's not Jay's talk. Relax. Yeah. I think Seb, the sentiment of him wanting to see Fred play, I get that. Maybe the packaging wasn't the best.
Yeah, but who was the better guy to take off the floor down the stretch?
I'm not disagreeing.
You had to play OG.
I'm just trying to better articulate what I believe was Seb's point. He used the word benched Fred. I mean, Fred is a bench player, so he starts on the bench. So you don't really bench a guy who is a substitute. Maybe he wants to see a bit more Fred. I would say to Seb that I don't know if Fred was healthy. I think Fred was rolling early, and I think the reason why we didn't see a lot of him in that fourth quarter was because I think the shoulder was an issue. Now, we'll find out about that between now and Thursday. Maybe Paul Jones and Eric Smith will find out some news, follow their Twitter accounts. Yeah, I think there's more to that. I just don't think Dwayne Casey, after trusting Fred in big situation after big situation throughout the year, just turned his back on him. I think he probably wasn't healthy and thought in small spurts when I need a smart decision or a big shot, I'll go to him, but I don't think he can play for extended periods. And I don't think he could defend with a bad shoulder for extended periods, which is why we saw the offense for defense substitution.
Yeah, and also I just think that you had to live and die by DeRozan and Lowry, because really, if you're going to put Fred in the final few minutes, it was for Lowry or DeRozan. Because the Cavs were playing bigger, and you had to have JV out there because Tristan Thompson was crunching you on the glass, as we outlined with the 9 offensive rebounds. And I guess there's a case to be made the Raptors could have gone smaller and tried to open up the offense that way. But JV for an entire quarter was the most effective weapon for either side in that ball game. Hard to think that you're going to go away from that, or at least the potential of that. And then outside of it, you had to have some size to defend Kevin Love and LeBron James. To put Fred VanVleet out there, we saw some stretches where DeRozan was trying to guard Kevin Love, and that was not sustainable. Kevin Love was terrible in this ball game offensively, but the few times that he looked viable, or when the ball moved around, speaking of breakdowns, it wasn't helping on LeBron on the block. It was helping on Kevin Love. DeMar DeRozan can't guard him, and it was unfair to ask him to do that. But yeah, there was no play for Fred VanVleet there. OG Anunoby deserved his spot. He was the rightful player to go down the stretch with. I got zero problem with the closing lineup, unless you want to nitpick with DeRozan and Lowry playing so freaking poorly, DeRozan especially, that you would go away from him. And this is why, this is a really interesting tweet from @IcyRedCups. @GDBunkis @Donnovan Bennett. Why is this team so scared to attack LeBron? He's not the 2013 1-5 defender he used to be. They see LeBron and they switch their and they stop their dribble. #SNRaps. I think that's a great point. I think that's a really, really good point, because that's where the mental stuff does kick back into me. Is DeRozan and Lowry do look differently when they're guarded one-on-one by LeBron. We mentioned Lowry. Mm-hmm. He blew by LeBron James on the left side. He's got it. He's going to the basket. But clearly in his head, he's no, LeBron's going to block me.
Yeah, he's got the Iguodala.
Yeah, and he's thinking about that, and instead he pulls up and takes a tough shot. And granted, we've seen Kyle Lowry hit that shot many times and in big spots and late in games, but still going to the basket, obviously the better option there. Didn't end up taking it. DeMar DeRozan, similar thing. The LeBron James ends up on him on a switch, and he can't do anything. And the Raptors, I don't think, did a very good job at putting LeBron James on his skates and trying to make him play defense. For too many stretches that game, 2 long stretches, he just got to sit out there in the corner and defend whoever the worst shooter was, or the least threatening player at the time was. And they didn't attack LeBron. And when they got their good players on him, they did treat him as though he was Michael Jordan, in his prime, playing defense.
Yeah. @IcyRedCups, probably the worst Twitter handle of the night, but probably the best comment of the night.
I couldn't read the name. Is it Uchia Mandam? I think is the name. Uchia Mandam. I think so.
Uchia Mandem?
Yeah. As Papa's telling me in my ear that's not a real name. I feel like I'm in one of those gags where I'm saying a joke name, and it's you almost got me to say it. Anyways. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for buzzing that in my ear. So yeah, Raptors are back. There's the one, I guess, semi-benefit is that you brought LeBron James into the overtime period. And if you think he's really that tired, he made him work a little bit more. He had to play more minutes. And you've got the deeper team. And Lowry and DeRozan didn't even show up for 3 quarters in an overtime. So they should be nice and rested. So you're back here on Thursday. You will find us here. And hopefully the Raptors can figure things out and bounce back, and that their key players don't just have nightmares of LeBron James all night. As always, thanks to everybody who downloads the podcast. Free association. We hit an exciting marker this week that we'll share with that audience later. And we appreciate everyone that's tuned in. And I guess try to keep your heads high, Raptor fans. We'll see you Thursday night. This is Raptors postgame presented by MasterCard. Proud fan of basketball in the North. Let's start something priceless. We'll see you on Thursday. Good night.